Well, Johan asked us to look at Sasol. He said, listen, Frans, I'm now desperate. I had enough of the cup. He actually wanted to throw in the towel. He said, I bought it for the long term. And Sasol disappointed me so much that I said to him, listen, Johan, I'll gladly look at the share. Now, let's have a look at Sasol first of all. What worries me is, of course, this head and shoulder formation. I've showed this many a time, and I said on the show also many a time, let's hope that we are completely wrong and that this head and shoulder does not play out, because then it can take the stock much, much, much lower. But, John, just have a look here. There's the left shoulder. There's the head, there's the right shoulder. Unfortunately, he didn't say to me, listen, where he started to buy it, but this chart looks bad. And while this chart, and remember this is now a weekly line chart, while the chart moves below 380 Rand, 51 cents, this neckline is still a resistance. And that tells you that the stock can go much lower. But what I want to say to you, Johan, always keep in mind, when you see such a vicious sell-off, and you see a little bit of a bounce and a vicious sell-off again, usually you do find a little bit of a bounce again. So it is not just a case of it can just go lower and lower and lower. In actual fact, I think that we can see a little bit of a relief bounce. But for you as a medium to a long-term investor, unfortunately, it must get above 380 Rand, 51 cents before I can get positive on the stock technically. Because what worries me is that the stock is actually showing us that there's some sellers around here. But let's just maybe have a look at the daily chart for those viewers that is interested in maybe taking a punt on this, because I believe while the Rand is still, you can almost say, under pressure, it should benefit Sasol, because remember, we know now that the news is out, they're going to spend another $1 billion on the project. So let's have a look here. What I like about Sasol, and this is now for the short term, and I want to show it to all the viewers that watch the program. Look at this beautiful tiny tweezer bottom here. Now, first of all, we had this ugly bearish candle. Let's maybe just zoom it out a little bit. We had that ugly bearish candle. Then we had this Arami, this doji. That's usually classical after you've seen such a massive sell-off that the indecision amongst investors are just saying, what must we do? Must we buy or we mustn't buy? That's exactly the case. That's Arami. Then you see what I like, this tiny, what we call a dragonfly doji. This told me that yes, there is some guys buying in weakness. And for me, the moment it started to move above 360.48, I think it wants to give us a little bit of a relief bounce. So yes, you can buy it around 360.48, or while it's above that. I will use my stop loss, of course, as 349.61. And if I look at my targets to the top, it will be 374, 374.42, 389.20, and then of course we see this massive gap. Now this gap is between 389.20 and 430 Rand. It's going to take a little bit of work for Sasol to close this gap, but at least what I see here for the short term, I see a sort of a reversal pattern here. I know only above 380, the long term or the medium term guys will be happy about the stock, but I still believe that if we can get a little bit of a relief bounce and the Rand remains weaker than 14 Rand 50, we can easily see that Sasol gets a little bit more interest from buyers, because remember, Sasol is a beautiful Rand hedge. And Mr. Wayne McCurry was so right by saying the other night, he said, listen, if they do spend another million or whatever the case may be, what do you want them to do? Must they stop the project and say, listen, guys, we cannot complete it? Or let's go ahead, let's complete it and then bring some profit back to investors. And that was such a valid point. I mean, we were so nervous about Sasol when they announced it, but he was so right by saying, let them finish the project and let the money come back. And what will happen? Sasol will maybe close this gap in time to come. And of course, because it's a Rand hedge, if the Rand weakens, it can easily be a very good investment for the medium to long term, but then it must get above the 380.51. Let's have a look at Naspers. I just want to get the share up here. Klerk asked me to look at Naspers, and he is a keen buyer of Naspers for the medium to long term because he's looking at that value unlock scenario. And what happened is when the markets came under pressure in America, Naspers lost from, let's call it 3,800 Rand all the way down to 370. That's quite a lot. That's almost a 500 Rand drop in the price. That is a big drop. But it looks like it wants to give us a little bit of a bounce. The only thing that do worry me is this double top. This double top still worries me for quite a while now, because there's the top, there was a top, and it cannot go above it. So for me, it must get above 3,742 Rand for me to get positive again on the stock. At the moment, yes, I can see some relief bounces. Yes, they made an announcement yesterday, but this double top worries me. And the thing that worries me the most for the medium to long term, because there's so many people buying the stock for the medium to long term because of the discount. They believe that the discount is there. I'm worried that this level, and this is the one that worries me the most, is this 2,447 Rand. Because if it gets below that, yes, it can turn this double top into a reality and then take the stock much lower. So at the moment, yes, we can see a relief bounce. Let's go to a daily chart and just show him that yes, we will probably see a beautiful relief bounce here, but a double top for the medium to long term worries me. So I will not just say that the stock will go forever. Now, if I look at the sell-off, and what do we see? There's a beautiful break of this downward trend. I just want to draw in that line there. There you are. Just want to get it in there. Well, with this beautiful bullish candle of yesterday, beautiful belt hold line candle. Why? Because it came into this real body and pushed up. That's a strong sign. Bullish candle. It closed this little gap as well. There's a gap to the top and there's a gap. I like the stock for the short term to the medium term. I actually think that we can see a little bit of a relief rally. My first target, of course, will be the close of 328,501. That will be the close of this little gap. And yes, I think we can see a relief bounce from here. And if you believe this candle, yes, you can buy while it's above this support of 3,154.82. Make use of this stop loss. The stop loss is 3,050 Rand and 21. And yes, we can maybe see a little bit of a bounce. But remember, look at the sell-off. Now, what worried me with this sell-off was that I said to myself, but if the share is in such a massive discount, why will we see a sell-off from 3.8 to 3.1? And the answer is actually coming out of the east. When Tencent comes under pressure, Naspers comes under pressure. So what it tells you, that the informed capitals say they follow the price of Tencent. They actually not follow the discount in Naspers. So what happens is it tracks the price 100%. So be nervous or don't be complacent and just say you buy for the discount. Let's rather look at the chart, because this chart showed some ugly selling. Yes, there's the positivity coming in now, but to buy it for just a discount and wait on it, be nervous, because that is not the right attitude, because this stock at the moment just follows Tencent. It does not follow the discount, what everybody says that is in the price, because we know that there's almost a 40% discount, but in actual fact, this chart tells us that it follows 10 cents at all. Now let's have a look at Marion Roberts, because this viewer, I think it was Basil, if I'm not mistaken, he said to me, listen, Frans, if I can remember correctly, they said that the construction sector is starting to turn around, and he wants to buy a little bit of those companies, and well, if you look at the stock is Marion Roberts, I mean it's at around 13.70. Now I can remember days when this stock was trading much higher. Let's just maybe show the viewers where this stock was in the past. That will give us a very good idea, and then we can go back to that daily chart just to show him. Let's have a look at this weekly chart of Marion Roberts. Now, can you believe Marion Roberts in its heyday? Let's just go back. Look at that. Marion Roberts in its heyday had a double top. Can you believe it? It warned long before, I mean in 2008 already. And what happened? It was a stock of around 110 Rand. Can you believe it? Let's call it 100 Rand. From 110 Rand to 13.70 Rand. Now, first of all, if you want to buy the stock, let's just put in a 40-week moving average here. Because he wants to start to buy it for the medium to long term. He says to me, listen, I want to accumulate some of these shares and hold on to it because he believes that we can maybe see a relief in the construction sector. And if you look at this, it is still fighting this 40-week moving average. And for me, personally, that's maybe a little bit premature to buy. I will wait for this moving average. And there's the level, 15 Rand and 7 cents. If it gets above 15 Rand 7 cents, you can maybe put your foot in the water and say, listen, I'm going to nibble on it. But look what we see here. There's something interesting here. That was the low in 2016. And remember, can you believe it? That's 2 years back. At 6 Rand, let's call it 6 Rand 50. But since then, what do we see? Although everybody says that the construction sector cannot survive and everybody wants to just write it off, look at these higher lows. There was a low at 650. Then it touched this line briefly. It bounced off here and it went up from 10 Rand all the way up. Higher low again. This is positive for me. So it tells me that there is some buyers attracting to the stock. So if I would look at it, I would say there's a beautiful symmetrical triangle. That symmetrical triangle's resistance sits exactly at that 15 Rand and 10 cents. So I will say buy off. If you did not have, well, if you haven't got the stock by now, buy it above 15 Rand 7 cents. Make use of the stop loss of 12 Rand 14. And I mean, this stock's got movement to the top. If it start to find attraction to other stocks, to other investors, it can really rally beautifully. So yes, hold on to your stop loss. Beautiful symmetrical triangle. First target will be 1780. And let's hope that it's a turnaround in the construction sector, because what does that mean? More jobs for people that's seeking a job. Thank you so much, and we'll talk again.